are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, especially when we have so much to talk about because Big 12 Media Days are ripping and roaring. There are so many headlines that are coming out of the Big 12 Media Days. I can't wait to get into it.
Some dumb headlines. Now,
oh, come on.
Joe, this man, Brett Yormark, ran out here and said that we're the deepest conference in the country. And then he came out there and said, yeah, we're the deepest because we're going to get multiple teams in the playoff. That's not being deep when you got the Big Ten and the SEC that are potentially going to get 8 of the 12 teams in.
I don't disagree with that. I'll save my full reaction to that when we get to it. That one was a little questionable. I think that the rest of them are, plausible conversation points that we can have.
I do. Scott Frost taking shots at the University of Nebraska, even though the University of Nebraska didn't make you go for it on 4th down 5 times against Northwestern when you were in Ireland and you got your ass beat by a team that couldn't win 2 games. But that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about Scott Frost and his very deceptive words about the University of Nebraska. Joey McGuire, Texas Tech's head coach, coming out saying, hey, I heard Brian Kelly said we were going to play Big Ten teams, or we want to play Big Ten teams. Did take Brian Kelly out of context. We will talk about that. But, Joe, I saw a lot of people this morning, and I cover LSU, freaking out about this. And LSU people were all like, let's go play. I
don't really get – I didn't think that – I was hoping that you wouldn't take that stance that there was some sort of drama or issue here. I mean, great.
You saw my tweet today. I think you liked it. I'm like, what are y'all saying is wrong here? He said, hey, y'all want to go play? I want to play you. Hey, okay, cool. What are we doing?
I'm going to repeat this when we get to this topic. I said this when we talked about building the new college football playoff field. You should have to play a team in every conference. There should be some sort of revolving rotation of playing teams. Maybe there is some sort of standing-based matchmaking that happens every single season. So, if you finish 12th in the Big 12, you have to play the team that finished 12th in the SEC and so forth. But you should encourage all the power conferences to play one another. I am against G5 competition with the P4 because I don't think it does anything for anybody. But we're probably going to have to keep it to some extent. But if we want to have the ability to argue that everybody plays similar schedules, which we'll never be able to accomplish, the least that we can do is mitigate it by scheduling cross-conference games like this.
Yeah, me and my buddy Carter Bryant had a massive debate that got really crazy last night. We did a 2-hour show in the offseason and basically talking about that. Now, I don't disagree with you at all in reference to this, but here, listen, again, and I'll talk. You're talking about saving stuff. I'm going to save this for the Brett Yormark conversation here.
Yep.
But stop acting like you need to be sitting at the big kids table. I'm starting to kind of get over this whole, please stop acting like you have a bigger voice than what you actually do. It's getting a little bit aggravating. And I do think for SEC and Big Ten teams, which, by the way, you do need those fan bases to be like, hey, man, the Big 12 is fun. Hey, man, the Big 12 is fun to promote your league. You can't just ostracize, those 2 conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. Don't be taking shots that don't need to be taken. Elks does say in here that Joey McGuire only said that because LSU can't win week 1. That's a low blow. It's a low blow.
Was not wrong.
Who said we got to play him in week 1? LSU did, by the way, speaking of that, did just do a home-and-home series with SMU that got announced.
Oh, did they? I missed that. That got announced today?
No, not today. It was 2 weeks ago. But SMU, the Ponies coming down to Baton Rouge and LSU going to Dallas, which is a massive recruiting ground for LSU.
They also scheduled one with Notre Dame, so credit to SMU for being aggressive in scheduling difficult opponents.
And then their message board said that they're doing another one with the way that they put it was a national title winner.
So Ohio State, Michigan,
Georgia. I mean, whoever it is.
Georgia would be such a bad idea.
Georgia would be a very bad idea. But nevertheless, I'm glad that you're not scared to go and play them. That shows I love that. All right. let's get moving here. But Joe, speaking of the University of Georgia, SEC Media Days, or the SEC announced the players that will be going to SEC Media Days. Outside of Jackson Arnold, for me, the Auburn quarterback, being announced that he was going to SEC Media Days, I think the biggest headline for some, and just the announcement of the attendees, was that Georgia quarterback Gunnar Stockton is going to be in attendance, kind of putting to rest all of the quarterback talk between Ryan Puglisi and Gunnar Stockton. Your thoughts on Gunnar Stockton being at SEC Media Days and what this means for Georgia moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it. I don't know how much more of an indication that we need that Gunnar Stockton's going to be the starter. We talked about this in the segment that we did like a month ago, kind of speculating, trying to read into things. I don't think we could not have received a clearer message on who is the guy. Mm-hmm. If you're going to take a quarterback, which you didn't have to do, you have a loaded roster. You have a lot of great representatives that could have gone and represented University of Georgia, and instead you chose Gunnar Stockton. It's not just purely like a leadership thing. He's been around the longest. You're not doing that if you don't feel like he is going to be your team's starting quarterback. Now, at some point, could Gunnar Stockton not live up to expectations, and could Puglisi be breathing down his neck? Could it be one of those types of quarterback battles that happen where Stockton is the winner because he's older, but Puglisi is right behind him? But I don't know how much more evidence we need. And Stockton showed with the way that he played in the college football playoff and the way that he played in the SEC championship game that he's got the guts, he's got the toughness to be Georgia's starting quarterback.
All right. I think it just goes to what everything Kirby does in running his team. I mean, we saw that in a lot of instances that he would rather go with upperclassmen and guys that have been in the trenches and guys that have been there and guys that want to win, sometimes maybe over a little bit of talent, right? Like, and he's even said that in some of his press conferences indirectly, but even directly in some of them. I don't know if for him, meaning Kirby, that you can just dictate the guys on like, hey, I'm not going to like make this a bigger deal than what it is based off of one performance on a team that played in a national title game. Right? Like that's a hell of a in a first start. I think that's a hell of a situation to be in. By the way, Kirby's dad died the day before. You had the tragedy in New Orleans. I mean, it wasn't even all him. They couldn't run the football on Notre Dame. Wasn't it Jay Nalsbury or whoever made a massive hit and they had a fumble? I forget who did, but regardless of all of that, I think it was Nalsbury. Maybe it wasn't. But regardless of all, but you remember the fumble because it was a critical part of the part of the game. Regardless of that, though, Joe, there is one thing that I'm really interested to see about the University of Georgia, and the question becomes, does it change your mind on them moving into the season? Now, here's a little bit of we kind of previewed a little bit of Georgia. I'm sure we'll preview them a little bit more before the season gets here. They're not bad at receiver. You bring back Dylan Bell, you bring back Colby Young, you bring back Landon Humphreys, but then you add in Zachariah Branch and you bring in Noah Thomas. Joe, he's going to have to be better as a passer, and not all of those guys can play. I don't know if they don't need I'm not saying Kirby's making the wrong decision with Gunnar Stockton. Gunner's got to be better at throwing the football down the field and making quicker decisions. That's every young quarterback. So to Georgia fans, we love you, but he's got to be better in those quicker decision-making situations. You got some receivers now. Joe, if Dylan Bell is their fourth or fifth option here moving forward, good heavens. Like, good heavens. I mean, that's a squad that you got there. So I think it does signify that he is going to be the guy. And I think it shows the team that, look, he's been the leader. He's been here. And it sends more of a message to the team, I feel like, more than anything else. And that's probably the only thing that Kirby is worried about.
Right. I also think that, like, this isn't a circumstance where we're kind of declaring it as he's made the decision, but you're not taking a guy who hasn't at least stepped up and played and proven that he's worth something to the team. Played in the two most important games of the season. They didn't win the Sugar Bowl, and it didn't turn out the way that everybody was hoping, but he still played pretty well. He made a couple of really big throws in his first ever start. I believe that was his first ever start.
First ever start, yeah.
and he played awesome in the second half of the SEC championship game. I just can't think of an instance, like a notable instance, where a guy who lost a quarterback battle went to a team's media days. Like or a conference's media days, rather. I just can't think
we
of
might
an
talk
instance.
one about later in reference to Colorado, but Deion's a different case.
Deion's a little bit of a different case, and I'm going to kind of talk on him wording it the way that he did and the insight that he provided to that quarterback battle. I just don't think that you would make this move, you would make this decision if this wasn't already partially decided. Because the inverse of this, Blake, is what would have happened if he didn't go? Like, what would have been the downside? They had to have talked this through. There's no way Kirby just blindly said, let's take Gunner. No, they definitely talked this through with the coaching staff and decided that, like, hey, we should probably take Gunner Stockton. He's a representative of the team. He is going to speak the best about our program, and he is probably going to be our starting quarterback. That conversation had to have occurred, and they had to have brought up, well, what's going to happen if we don't take him, and who would we take in replacement of him? You didn't have to take Gunner Stockton.
But here's the thing.
Bit.
Here's the thing. I don't think Kirby worries about what media thinks. Right? Like I don't think he cares about that.
But that's my whole point is that, like, he doesn't care what the media thinks. So, like, why bring him unless you're trying to you're trying to send a statement to the locker room by doing this. You are sending a statement to the locker room.
100%. That's what
he's more thoughtful. Yeah, he's more thoughtful about that than he is with how we're sitting here reacting to it.
Joe, I'm going to tell you this. I listen now. All right. I think Georgia's going to be one of those teams that's continuing for the SEC. So don't take and Georgia fans, please do not take what I'm about to say out of context. However, Joe, the kid was okay throwing the football. He was okay. There also is a point in time where when he needed to make some of the big throws, it didn't look right. Like it looked like it was too labored. Like there are things now, if you're going to name him, that I don't know if he's like just a pure overall passer. And you got dudes that can go out there and play now. I know it's probably not the structure of how they want to do offense. At the same time now, I mean, you saw what happened a season ago, right? Like, I mean, I do think that he's better for what ultimately they want to do. He's just going to have to take a bigger step. I mean, this is a week one, game one. I say starter. I mean, I know he played against Notre Dame, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this is his show now. Defensively, they got a lot to replace. But Georgia is built to do all of that. And so we'll see what happens here with Gunner Stockton, but it does make a very notable case here. All right. Joe, when we come back, we'll break down some of the big storylines here in Big 12 Media Days. Let's talk about our good friends first, though, over at betonline.ag. In the break, y'all all do us a favor. Hit the like and share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, when we come back, we'll talk about Big 12 Media Days. Brett Yormark saying they're going to get multiple teams in the playoffs. I had to go tell my dog to be quiet. She kept barking the whole time, and she
had takes about Gunner Stockton, Blake. Okay,
dogs know about dogs.
Exactly. She heard you talking about him.
Yeah, dogs know about dogs. I mean, hell, you're probably right there. I mean, when my wife and children leave, she gets so emotionally detached that she starts howling like a damn wolf. She loves my kids to death. She loves my wife to death. And I'm like, shut up. They'll be right back. You know what I mean? Like, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. All right. Joe, the Big 12 Media Days were this week, and there were some big headlines that are coming out of the Big 12, none bigger than Commissioner Brett Yormark's comments in reference to the Big 12, saying that he does believe that a pair of Big 12 teams are going to make it to the playoff this year. He did double down on the 5+11 model. He also made no coaches poll or media poll this year, saying that we are going to do things different. Joe, your thoughts overall on Brett Yormark's comments here coming out of Big 12 Media Days?
I thought what you said earlier really resonated with my feelings on this. I don't understand why there is this desire by Yormark to try and compare himself and claim that they're in striking distance of getting even with the SEC and the Big Ten, because that is what he is doing. Mm-hmm. He is trying to prove and say, hey, our conference has the best depth out of any conference. He is trying to compare himself and say that they are at the same level of the Big Ten and the SEC. You do not make a statement like this if you're not trying to make that comparison. I wish the Big 12 would understand that they have a very unique model. They have a very unique structure. His argument that they have depth is completely wrong. What they have is the best parity. Last season, we didn't know who was going to represent the Big 12 until the Big 12 championship game, and the weeks leading up to it, it was utter chaos. And while they didn't have the best representative, the chaos created a ton of entertainment. We had the late games like the Colorado-Baylor one. Colorado-Kansas State was amazing. Arizona had a bunch of barn burners. BYU had a bunch of State. There were so many teams in the mix, and they were winning by so many late margins. That, to me, needs to be the selling point. And trying to argue that you have depth is the wrong argument to make, Blake. The argument to sit here and make for the Big 12 and why people should be invested is that you're the most entertaining, chaotic conference in a sport where there's fans across the country that love the chaos. Stop trying to be the SEC in the Big Ten. You're not them. You're uniquely entertaining for your own reasons. That is why I'm really annoyed by these comments by Yormark. But I give him credit. I mean, I give him a little bit of credit for having the balls to, take the shot that he is. But I just can't get on board with it.
To elaborate what you said, like, hey, what you said earlier is how I feel about it. So I'm just going to repeat it for argument's sake in case people didn't hear it. Stop acting like you need to be sitting at the big kids table. This isn't Thanksgiving. You're not around your cousins. You're not, your big cousin that you want to be sitting next to in Thanksgiving's not here. This is the real world. This, like, realistic real world. Joe, I do think that there's a couple of things that happened here. I think that there was a false sense of hope created when Arizona State almost knocked off Texas. Fully believe that. Because Texas played up and down and leveled their opponent all year. Last year, I mean, hey, sounds good. Is Vandy closer to winning the SEC now that they lost by 3 to Texas? Is that team Joe? We have seen teams. I mean, this is not a shot. I really mean this. We've seen teams like Vandy upset Alabama, almost upset Texas. We saw freaking NIU clip a national title contender, right? We saw, and I'll do one for LSU. We saw LSU lose to Troy, and then the next week beat the SEC East champs. Sometimes that happens. I'm not taking a shot when I say that. Okay. You're not there. Just because Arizona State did what they did a season ago, you are not there. I'm not saying that they can't get multiple Big 12 teams into the playoff. Anything can happen. 2 teams can go on a magical run, and they get in there. Anything can happen. But, Joe, it also comes down to the fact of when you start acting and saying that you need to be sitting at the big kids table and you keep talking like that, the people who want the Big 12 and everybody to do well kind of don't want you to do well anymore. Like, hey, bud, just because you're the poorest rich kid at the table doesn't mean that you deserve to be in the upper echelon with us either. The SEC and the Big Ten are what they are for a reason because they have the best teams and the best conferences and what they do. Joe, they can get 2 teams in, but don't you dare come in here and don't you dare go out in the public and tell me that you're the deepest conference in the country when you're getting 2 of your teams in. That doesn't make you the deepest conference in the country. The deepest conferences in the country, the both of them, had multiple teams that were in the playoffs, and we argued that maybe the SEC should have gotten another one in over some of the teams in these other conferences. The Big 12, along with the ACC, is going to have to show on the field for me that you belong here. Joe, we've made this argument. I'm not going to spend much time on it. Clemson went 0 for 3 against the SEC last year, and one of the teams that was on the outside looking in got clipped. They went into Clemson and beat them. Like, what are we doing? Like, the games on the field are not mattering if that's what we're doing. You get to a place in the Big 12, Joe, 2 years ago, Mississippi State went into Arizona and clipped them. Mississippi State was god-awful. God-awful. Now, you can say, well, Blake, Mississippi State lost to Toledo. Well, they still beat Arizona the year that Jeff Fish.
But they weren't. They weren't in the Pac-12 or in the Big 12 at the time. So
I don't. It's slightly
stop you there.
It doesn't matter. The team, you literally lost your two biggest teams in Texas and Oklahoma. You go and get Arizona, and the lowest team in the SEC is clipping a team that you want contending. Right? Like, I mean, that part doesn't matter to me at all. You get to a place where I liked Brett Yormark. I actually like that he made the stance on the 5+11. But, Joe, this week, he's walking that back now. He's walking it back. Stand on your ground if you're going to stand on your ground. But, Joe, I'm getting very aggravated with some of these conferences acting like they're the Big Ten in the SEC. You're not. And if you want to be, Texas Tech is doing some of the things that you need to do to be there. The thing that I would say is, can you go in here and clip some of these teams before you start saying that we're the deepest? And listen, what else is he supposed to say? I understand that there's an argument of Joe. What else is he supposed to say? You don't have to say that, though. You don't have to say that you're the deepest conference in the country, because you're not.
Right. It to me is an unnecessary statement. And I also thought what was a really unnecessary statement by him was saying, I fully expect the Big 12 to earn multiple college football playoff bids this year and to show once again that we can compete with anyone.
You can.
I like how you brought up that the game against Texas for Arizona State has created ridiculous false hope.
Yes.
I think that game was really exciting, and it proved that a Big 12 team could show up and compete, but a singular outcome like that, where you still lost off of a brutal mistake at the end of the game, a singular outcome like that does not mean that your conference is trending in that direction. The Big 12 will be a one-bid league again this year. They have a bunch of ranked teams right now on a lot of preseason polls. How are we going to look at the teams that are in the mix at the current moment and believe that their top two teams are better than the top two teams in the ACC, who have Clemson, who's got a ridiculous roster, and Miami, who's gearing up with a super veteran quarterback, and all of the talent that runs through that conference, not to mention the fact that we can already expect that there are going to be 3, possibly 4 teams from the Big Ten and the SEC knocking on the door. It is so unlikely that this year that they're going to be a multi-bid conference.
Joe,
they're not going to be.
And that's when you get to the place of, why isn't Brett Yormark? And that's why we praised him for not doing the AQ model. Because in the AQ model, he would have at minimum gotten 2 in. So him going to 5-11, and now that he realizes that he made a mistake at Big 12 Media Days, has started to walk it back.
Wait, what was the walk back that he did? I didn't see.
He basically hinted at, in the 5-11 plus model, that he's open for at large, but he said he's worried about the politics of these bigger conferences getting other teams in because of money and not on merit. So basically saying that the Big 12 would have merit and that the SEC and Big 10 would get in because of money. Well, no, they have the merit more than you do, right? Like South Carolina, Alabama, and Illinois, and whoever you want to throw in there last year had more merit than you did. Like he kind of tried to walk it back. At least that's how I felt, that he tried to walk it back a little. Joe, lastly for me with this Brett Yormark thing, I like that he's trying to do some things, but you know that uncle that is at we were talking about Thanksgiving earlier. You know that uncle that's always at Thanksgiving who's always got a new idea and a new invention and a new thing that he's doing? Like always, there's something new that's going on that he's business-wise he's trying to do. Every time I look up, I feel like Brett Yormark's trying to do something new that makes no sense. So what? So he came out today and said there's going to be no media polls, there's no coaches polls on where the teams are going to re-rank.
That was so dumb.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, but why? Like, I don't care for him. Like the SEC last year, I think there was like 7 votes for Vandy. Okay, all right. There's some jokesters in the group. Sounds good. But there also just comes a point in time where I say, Bud, it's not that serious.
Well, to me, this is clearly a measure where you're trying to be like, we're so balanced that we don't want to have a list that's put out there. That's clearly what he's trying to do here. But why would you take that away? The discourse is what fuels the sport. The whole sport is fueled by the debates. This freaking show is built off of the discourse of debating, is this team better than that team?
Exactly.
Having a list produced by your conference, by the media members that represent the conference, is incredibly valuable. Why would you deprive the opportunity to talk? Instead, you know what we're doing right now? We're talking about his stupid statements that he made at the beginning of media days instead of reacting to the media poll that would have been put out. Those things are valuable.
Well, think about this. The first thing that I thought wasn't Arizona State picked like second to last to finish in the Big 12?
He probably doesn't want that again. He doesn't want that talking point, which is silly.
Well,
I would argue I would want that.
Ironically, the funny part about that, it would show that you were the deepest conference in the country.
Well, right. He probably doesn't want to have to deal with the everybody picked Utah to win it and they finished at the bottom. That's going to make us look stupid if that happens again. No, prove the point that Arizona State could climb from the bottom.
Well, go out there and say that it makes the media look dumb, not you. Use it. Joe, let's just say the poll came out today, right? Okay, and you say, hey, just a reference to all the media people that were out there. This is what you said last year. Arizona State won the conference. And it would have gone to his point of, hey, man, I'm telling you, you don't know the conference like I do. Again, all right, I'm going to say this. Brett Yormark reminds me of a guy that was homeschooled as a kid. The awkwardness.
All right.
Hold on. The awkwardness of not knowing and reading the room. I feel like he regurgitates some things that he says and tries to make himself look cool, but it's not the time that he should have been doing it.
That's fair. I was gonna counter with I don't totally agree with it. You're right. It did feel like he read like a very scripted statement and he didn't really look into the outside narratives, arguments, and whatnot that are a part of all this. I think that with this whole WWE partnership and the way that he kind of tries to build up this wrestling promotion and stuff, I would think that start beef with the media kind of jokingly would have been entertaining. I don't know. I think that it was
very WWE-ish.
Right. Yeah. To be like, oh, this is their list, but it's wrong. I don't know what he would have framed it as, but that would have been a very entertaining, and it would have played to the narrative that he's trying to build.
Could you have imagined if you had, what I would have done with that partnership, by the way? I was going to tweet this today, but I didn't do it. What I would have done is call in my one favor and start off Big 12 Media Days and let Stone Cold Lee and Steve Austin hear the glass shatter, dum dum dum, and I'm bringing Stone Cold Steve Austin in the middle of Big 12 Media Days. Do you know that would have been? You want to make if you want to make your conference fun again, okay? Yeah. Do something like that, Joe. It would have been the buzz of the entire offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody did what the Big 12 did. But again, they're taking these petty little shots that they have no business taking. And it takes people away from it. So, look, good for swinging for the fences. That's all that I know. All right. Joe, another big comment that's coming out of Big 12 Media Days is one that I am honestly, and we talked about this, you and I talked about this a little bit already. I am shocked that people are taking this as what Joey McGuire, the Texas Tech head coach, said this week in reference to LSU and wanting to do a home and home with LSU. I'm dead serious when I say this as someone who covers that team for a full-time living. I am stunned. I really am that people are taking Joey McGuire's context or comments and saying, oh, no, he's taking a shot at LSU. But Joey McGuire did come out and say this week that, listen, I heard Brian Kelly this offseason talk about wanting to go play Big Ten teams. Well, hey, man, we're here. we will play a home and home with you as well. What is wrong with that? What, like, everybody keeps putting on social media, not Brett Yormark, Joey McGuire takes a shot at Brian Kelly and LSU. That's a shot? Asking to play a home and home is a shot now?
Right. Well, this is what I'm like so perplexed by, why some people are kind of framing it this way. I mean, I like when coaches approach things like this. I really do. And they're just very direct, like, hey, we should be playing teams in the SEC. We should be playing teams in the Big Ten. I think that should have been, not to tie us back to Yormark, that should have been the whole talking point, is that, like, hey, we want to build more relationships with the other conferences and to play one another. And we want to prove that we're worthy of getting multiple teams in the playoff. Like, that would have been the better argument and the better statement to make. And that's what Joey McGuire is doing right here. He's saying that, like, hey, I think that our team, our program is building and trending in such a direction that we could show up and we could compete with LSU. He didn't say that we would wax LSU. He didn't say that. That's not what the statement was. But I think he's just trying to push, like, hey, instead of scheduling Clemson or scheduling Florida State or USC, why not schedule us? USC tried to back out of the damn game that you had with LSU. Why not try and play us? We want to play you. Neutral site, wherever it is. That he obviously didn't say that, but I would like for more of this to happen. And I stand by what I said when we talked about the college football playoff model moving to 16. I think that schedules for teams should have built-in opponents that are, if you're in the SEC, you have to play one Big 12 team, one ACC team, one Big 10 team, and the rest of if you've got one more spot, you play a G5. And there should be some sort of rotation based on where you finish in the standings. The prior year is who you have to play in said opposing conference. So if you finish at the top, you have to play the team at the top. If you finish at the bottom, you have to play the teams at the bottom. It solves that issue.
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever do that. I actually agree with your motto, but they won't. I don't think they'll ever do that. He did take Brian Kelly out of context. Just for
what
clarity.
What was the
all right? Do you remember when BK went on with Pete Thamel and Reese Davis on the Game Day podcast? And it was the one where they took it out of context with BK about Arch Manning. They asked him about, hey, BK, who would you rather, Garrett Nussmeier or Arch Manning? Well, what did you think he was going to say? Well, I mean, come on. What did you think he was? I'm going to take Arch Manning over Garrett Nussmeier. But he goes on a 2-minute elaboration of how much when he recruited and how much he loved Arch, whatever. BK was asked a question by Pete Thamel in reference to, Coach, have you seen the thing between Tony Batiti and Greg Sankey on potentially playing the Big Ten in week 1 every year? And he said, yeah, actually, Greg Sankey talked to me about it as I coached in the Midwest at Notre Dame for a long time. What do you think about this? BK gave an approval. That's what BK was talking about. Like, hey, listen, I was asked a question by my commissioner. What do I think about this? What are some things we could do around this? And he answered it. Sounds good. The clip, though, came from On3 and 247 and all these other news outlets that said, Brian Kelly says he wants to play Big Ten teams. That's not what he said. It was around the conversation that you and I have had on the show in reference to Brett Yormark, Tony Batiti, and Greg Sankey wanting to join together and play against one another in week 1. That was the context. However, going to the Jerry McGuire situation, Joey McGuire, did I say Jerry McGuire, like the freaking movie? The Joey McGuire situation, Joe, I'm honestly stunned. I don't know what else to say. Dude, listen to me. No one has gone out and played other teams outside their conference more than LSU. Legitimately. It does not exist. They got Clemson. They had Florida State. They had USC. They have SMU. They will go and play anybody. And I think that Texas Tech, for what it's worth, a team that's spending a crap load of money and a team that wants to try to use their financial resources to take over the Big 12 is saying, hey, what if we get LSU in a home and home? LSU is a big enough brand. It's local enough or close enough where people will travel. Joe, Houston, outside of the state of Louisiana, Houston houses the most LSU alumni in the country. It's not remotely close. It's like 1 million alumni live in the city of Houston. that went or like LSU. By the way, my number 3 audio podcast, as an example, is not in the state of Louisiana. It's in the state of Texas. It's in Houston, Texas. So you get to a place where I understand what Joey McGuire's trying to do here. By the way, why not? I mean, there's no LSU fan on this planet that wouldn't say, hey, man, we considering the reason that what we've looked like in week 1, we will definitely go to Texas Tech and play you. Thank you. I mean, he's shooting his shot. Why this has become a narrative of him taking allegedly a shot at BK, which it's not a shot. If you listen to what he said, it's not a shot. All he said was, hey, Brian Kelly says he wants to go play Big Ten teams. Hey, coach, I'm right here. We'll play you. How else do you read that? Because that's what he's saying, Joe.
Exactly. I mean, extremely simply put, I would like to see more opportunities for matchups like this. I wish, I mean, like, I feel as though the SEC doesn't and the Big Ten don't really schedule a lot of
outside of LSU and USC last year and Texas and Ohio State this year. I don't really remember Big Ten. No, because Notre Dame was the team that played Georgia, wasn't it? Y'all played Georgia a couple years ago, right? It was, y'all played Georgia the year the national champion.
There's really not a lot of Big 12 matchups with the SEC. So
is Ohio State and Notre Dame the only Midwest teams that will play SEC teams in the regular season?
I'd have to think on that. Michigan's playing Oklahoma this year.
All right, Michigan. Yeah. Well, Wisconsin
and they play Texas.
Wisconsin and Alabama. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some.
It's just not frequent. It's not very often. No, at the end of the day, we should encourage this to happen more. I think it's good for the sport. It eliminates the arguments that we have when these teams have no intersection whatsoever and we're kind of just guessing. Stop scheduling FCS and G5 teams and having 3 of those on your schedule. I'm sick of it. I think everybody should play competitive hard schedules all the way through.
Yeah, you know what else it would tell? It would be a death knell for the Big 12 and ACC.
How so?
Because Joe, you know what's going to happen there. The Big 12 and the Big 12 and the ACC, if they partner up with the Big 10 and the SEC and they do something like that and they're losing majority of these games, it kills their conference. At least right now they have.
I wouldn't go as far as say it's killing them. I wouldn't say it would kill them.
Joe, losing ultimately killed the Pac-12. Not getting playoff teams in and not being competitive ultimately is what killed them.
No. That's not.
I don't want to hear the TV argument.
The TV argument. It is the argument. It's the only thing.
Joe, they haven't won a national title. The West Coast hasn't won a national title since 2004.
They still have
21 years.
They still got a team to a national championship more recently than the SEC. So I don't agree with that. I think that fell apart because of a buffoon.
And the SEC got their head coach.
The dumbass that was running the Pac-12 thought that the conference was worth vastly more than the TV deal that was on the table for them. And he turned it down without having any options on the table. And it fell apart because of that. I don't think that it would kill them. I think it would open doors for kids in other states that go to those football games to see more teams across the country. I think.
Yeah, could you imagine? I do. That's interesting. You bring up that last point. Could you imagine Ohio State? Well, Texas, Ohio State. The Ohio State fathers out there that bring their sons to that game. Hey, Dad, remember that time we went to the Texas game? Yeah. That is you are very right there. So that is a very interesting point. Joe, continuing on some of these comments, you know that we could not talk about the Big 12 and not get to Deion Sanders. Deion is back after his little brief hiatus. Glad to see that Coach Deion or Coach Sanders is doing better after some health scares over this offseason. Good to see him back. But, Joe, as Deion normally does, he made some headways. Juju Lewis was at Big 12 Media Days, was he not?
No, Salter was there. I don't know if.
Okay, Salter was the one. No, didn't he bring? No, Juju was there. I just read the headline. What did you not?
Wait.
We need to cut that part out. I'm pretty sure Juju was there too.
I don't know. Oh, maybe he was.
Yeah. I read a headline that he was with Deion.
Okay. All right. We'll continue. I can't speak with certainty there.
Okay, we'll find it. Regardless of that, Deion talking about the quarterback situation at Colorado, Kaidon Salter, Juju Lewis. Your thoughts on him not naming a starter as of right now?
Yeah, the statement that Deion Sanders provided, that he said, we brought both of them because I don't know which one's going to start. Okay, so that clarifies what he means by brought. Like they have both guys because they don't know which one's going to start. He went on to say, somebody asked for kind of a little bit of a clarification.
Yeah, I thought I was going crazy.
Long as they're doing their jobs and we're winning, he said yes to both quarterbacks playing this season. He said, we definitely want to continue to develop Juju, but Kaidon is unbelievable, saying that both have been impressive. He wants to get a lot out of Juju Lewis. The way that I read into this, because they have somewhat similar skill sets. They're both really good runners. They're good at throwing on the run. They're pretty accurate in short areas. I think that this is reading it as he wants both guys to stay motivated. And then at the start of the season, he's going to heavily lean on Kaidon Salter because we've seen Salter dominate. We've seen Salter make huge plays at the G5 level. The experience that Salter has is so valuable in this competition, and for him to start week one compared to a guy who reclassified in Juju Lewis, who I believe is still 17 years old. This isn't Ryan Williams, 17-year-old showing up and playing great. Playing the quarterback position as a 17-year-old is super, super hard. I think what's going to probably happen is they're going to bring him in some series, and it's still mostly going to be Kaidon Salter. As a fan of a team that did the 2 QB thing multiple times, talking about Notre Dame, where Brian Kelly did it with Tommy Rees and Everett Golson, then he did it with Malik Zaire and Deshaun Kaiser. It doesn't work doing the bit. And I think Deion Sanders, and I believe Deion Sanders is smart enough to know that the bit of splitting, rotating series doesn't work with quarterbacks. You just can't get into a good, effective rhythm. He's just trying to keep guys motivated, keep them focused. And I think that Juju will get the chances to step on the field in spurts, and hopefully they keep his red shirt and he ends up developing as they're projecting.
This feels like a promise to me with Juju Lewis.
That's the other part.
Right. It feels like a promise that he made to the kid to get him on campus. Joe, look, Deion is a different breed of human being, especially a different breed of coach, right? He goes by his own drum. I'm not saying both of them are not going to play. It would be a disservice to Kaidon Salter if he's not your dude. It would be a massive disservice. I understand what you probably promised Juju Lewis in recruiting, and maybe they play both of them. It is going to be interesting to see how quickly Deion starts flipping his box in reference to if Kaidon Salter throws a pick, does he get benched? You know, I do think it will be interesting. Here's the thing. I do think Kaidon Salter was the best quarterback in this year's portal, right? I thought a lot of SEC teams could have used him. I thought he should have gone to Auburn, but Hugh Freeze was out playing golf when he went in the portal. The bottom Hugh Freeze pond. Regardless of all of that, okay, I do like that Deion is not afraid to go out there and say, hey, man, I don't know who's starting, but, dude, I'm telling you right now, both of those guys can play in the NFL. And I don't mind that. Like, who says that you can only bring one kid from one position? Like, why? And you handle it well. You know, I think of the Joe. What was the bowl game that Ohio State and Texas played in? I forget which one they played in. Maybe it was in Texas. Maybe Cotton Bowl. Maybe I don't remember.
Cotton Bowl.
You remember when they did the meetings with all the players and everybody was talking to Arch and nobody was talking to Quinn Ewers, right? Sometimes as a quarterback, you got to have hey, man, listen. As a team, there's a lot of debate on who's starting. I'm bringing both of you. I'm sending a message. Now, Prime did go out there today and said, look at all you media on that bull jive. I mean, he likes saying that bull junk and that bull jive. Deion's going to go by the own beat of his own drum. And I don't know who's going to start. I think Caden Salter's going to make some waves this year, and I think he's that talented to do it if you're given the opportunity.
Well, and I think of like another dual quarterback situation where with Michigan, Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy, where it was undecided, younger guy, veteran player, both were key contributors the year prior. They were supposed to rotate until there was a decision. And then eventually JJ McCarthy clearly separated himself. The rest is history. They won a national title with JJ McCarthy. I could also see it being deployed like that. Like the first couple games, you're figuring it out. Maybe not purely rotating, but Juju Lewis is getting on the field and he's contributing. And then once there's kind of that clear indication of like, hey, Salter, who's a dynamic athlete, is going to set us up to succeed better because he's been a lot more experienced and he's seen a lot more live bullets. And last year, he's also been through a lot more adversity. And with Juju Lewis, Liberty was put through the ringer last year with the fact that they didn't have any weapons for Salter to throw to. Now he has that at Colorado. I think that we just got to be patient here. Let Juju Lewis get on the field some, play a little bit this year. Salter should be the primary guy. Promise or not, that should not impact things. Salter is the better player at the current moment, and it would be better for Colorado as a program for him to go to the NFL, get a shot if he plays to expectation, and then Juju Lewis takes over.
Arch Manning, hold on. Well, I just named one of them. Outside of Cade Klubnik, two of the top three quarterbacks that we're talking about all offseason have been Arch Manning and Garrett Nussmeier. Both of them sat behind guys that got drafted into the NFL. Both of them. Now, Garrett obviously behind Jaden and Arch behind Quinn Ewers. Both of them have come out and talked about at length how much they learned from watching those guys take live bullets. I mean, listen, Garrett talked about it at the Manning Passing Academy. He goes, bro, some of the shit that I would scratch my head on and ask why Jaden's doing, I'm like, okay, I'll get it. Makes sense. Hey, why do I keep going over cover three? This was basically the conversation he had. Why is he watching every form of cover three out of every situation, every formation, every situation with the VR thing and BR? Now I know, because it doesn't look the same. Joe, you can learn just as much as staying right behind a guy that's been there and has the skins on the wall. Hey, we're in meetings. Why? Hey, Coach asked Caden Salter, why didn't you throw this here? Well, Coach, I mean, look what this safety's about to do. Just so many things you can learn. He's got the talent. He doesn't have the live bullet experience, and we'll see. And I don't mind Deion for doing that at all. All right. Joe, last but not least on these shots that are coming out of the Big 12 and the media days, Scott Frost, who's finally back in college football, well, he went frosty. Dad pun. Scott Frost took a shot at Nebraska. I'm sure everybody's seen it by now, but Joe basically in saying that sometimes you don't need to take the job, talking about Nebraska and taking some petty shots at him. Joe, I'm gonna let you. I always let you go first, but dude, this one I cannot believe that this dude said this, and he's that cocky.
So I think that the craziest part about what he said is this was a quote from him. I said I wouldn't leave UCF unless it was someplace you could win a national championship. I got tugged in a direction to try and help my alma mater and didn't really want to do it. It wasn't a good move. I'm lucky to get back to a place where I was a lot happier. So this is laced with shots that he took, that saying that Nebraska can't win a national title, saying that he was forced into the job even though he didn't really want to take it, and then going as far as to say that he was miserable while he was there. Now, there has been some speculation of how professional he was while he was at Nebraska and some of the
antics.
Benefits that he was maybe taking advantage of and not being as fully committed to coaching as he should have been. That factored in. Maybe that was a part of some sort of a smear that was put together by people within the Nebraska organization that were just sick of him and didn't think he was living up to the expectations. It's very clear that both sides, and it ended very, very poorly. This is a very toxic relationship, and it sucks for a guy who was a representative of the school as a player and was one of their best quarterbacks in the history of the program. Like, that is what's so brutal about this. But I mean, I can't give Scott Frost like too much shit for him taking this shot here. I know that he was really bad at Nebraska, but like, if he didn't want to be there, he was great at UCF, and he has a chance to reprove that like the infrastructure at UCF is better than what they have in Nebraska right now. I know it's a new conference and it's not the G5 anymore, but if Scott Frost hits the ground running in the first couple years and they're back to fully competitive in a conference, and there's a lot of parity, to get back to that central theme, where he could win it, he could be the winner here. He absolutely could be the winner here. There is a quicker path to UCF winning the Big 12 than there is for Nebraska winning the Big 10.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, no doubt. There's not because of the right now, and speaking of right now with the auto qualifier in there, if they win the conference, yes. No doubt. There is. Joe, I got to push back on one thing. Nebraska didn't make you go 3-9. Nebraska didn't make you go 4-8. Now, Matt Rule has not been much better. He hasn't. We all know that. They went 5-7 in year one. They went 7-6 this past year. Not much better, but better. Joe, that speaks in the infrastructure of you more than it speaks on the infrastructure of Nebraska. Right? Like, I mean, there comes a point. Joe, he was 3-9. They went to Dublin, Ireland, and played Northwestern and lost 31-28 based off of his decision-making. He wasn't ready. Joe, he made some bad decisions down the stretch. The reason they kept losing all of those one score games was because down the stretch, they were competitive enough in some situations. He made really bad decisions. It was not the infrastructure that made you go for it for 5 times on 4th down and get none of them and lose a 17-point lead. None of that happened for Nebraska, right? Like, Nebraska didn't do that to you. So I get what you're saying of, hey, there was some toxicity. You don't really blame him because of how they did some things. That's fine. But there's also a lot of blame towards you when the guy that came in there has already had a winning record. So he got to a winning record in 2 years. And I don't think that Dylan – Joe, he went 3-9. He went 3-9 and 4-8. He didn't have a Big Ten win, but he had one. Like, I mean, there gets a point in time where you got to look at yourself in the mirror and don't be so conceited in the sense of, like, it feels too cocky to me. Like, you can't come out there when you just took a beating and say, hey, it's all the school's fault. It's none of my fault.
Well, just as much evidence of him being a bad coach at Nebraska and them performing poorly. Like, that was so clear that what happened, we can't ignore the past. Are we going to act like the 7-6 season that Matt Rule had at Nebraska this year was like some huge accomplishment? I would argue,
considering they went 3-9, yes.
The argument in favor of Scott Frost is that since they fired Bo Pelini, they have not been
this is fair
anywhere near the level of dominance that they once had. They haven't even touched it. They haven't even come miles close to what they used to be. This isn't a Notre Dame type drought. This is mediocrity at its firmest level. They have been incredibly mediocre. So maybe there is something that he won't share with us that's going on over there, that they can't get it right. I think that there's been a history of bad coaching stints because they do not have the infrastructure in the organization necessary to produce national championship teams. And maybe I'll be proven wrong this year with Nebraska being better, which I projected they would be.
Hold on. Let me just say this. You know, when you see a toxic relationship and the two parties break up and they're talking shit about one another, you find the real truth in reference to how both of them feel. Doesn't mean that everything that they said was wrong. Just because you came out there and you took shots at him doesn't mean that Scott Frost is wrong. It's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that I don't think he should have taken the shots because you just have just as much. It's like saying, hey, that girl over there, she's a hoe. She don't do any. She's just a hoe. She cheated on me with everybody. Meanwhile, you were out there cheating too. You can't throw stones when you're doing the same shit. Like, Sure, Nebraska might not have the infrastructure to win a national title. Did anybody on the planet remotely think that Nebraska was really a shot to do that? Because I'm not in that world. I would love to see where that world is. I mean, legitimately, I don't think anybody was saying that. You're just taking a shot to take a shot. I mean, listen, you also made the decision to go home, and here's the truth. Matt Rule is recruited better than you. Look, I just got back from the state of Nebraska. Just like literally. It's not a fun place to be. It is not a fun place to be at all. And I hate to say that about a state, but it was not fun at all. And I was in probably your funnest town, and that being Omaha. But you get to a place where, Joe, you're right. There's nothing to do there. This is what I got off when I got out of the airport, a 6-terminal airport. You ready? A strip club, a Burger King, a McDonald's, and a church. Corn, baseball field. Like
Wait, the same can be said for a lot of college towns.
Name one that's got that and then doesn't have some form of infrastructure. Now, I wasn't in Lincoln, but I mean, look, you get to a place where he might be telling the truth. They might not be able to get back there. But again, when you were making the bad decisions on the field, that wasn't Nebraska's fault either.
I understand the criticism for the mistakes that he made. I think that it's kind of telling since, I mean, Pelini was probably the most successful coach.
Yeah, they went, 10-2, 9-3, whatever it was? Under Pelini?
I forget what the last season that he had.
Yeah, because he had a dominant 2. I think they went 10-2.
He was 67 and 27 in his time there. And since then, Barry Cotton was the interim. Mark Riley was awful for 2 seasons. And then Scott Frost was obviously horrible. The worst overall record of those coaches. I just think that them swinging and missing this much kind of means something. And it has been since 2014 that they've been in the top tier conversation. And before that, they were going downhill slowly under Pelini. And they should have kept Pelini. We've talked about that a million times over. But they have not been relevant to the degree that they once were, which I don't know what the signal of what led to their downturn was. But something had to have happened between the firing of Bo Pelini and the year 2025. Something.
Yeah, recruiting, NIL, portal.
Well, that happened halfway through that. And if anything, having a brand as big as Nebraska's and the rabid fan base that's willing to spend the money, they should be fine in that area. And they've been better. They've recruited better, just not up to the level that they
Can I ask you a question? If you haven't done shit in 20 plus years, is your brand relevant?
No, I don't think that it is. But I don't think Nebraska falls under that, though, because
when's the last time they had like a 8-win season?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Bo Pelini.
Last time they won a conference championship was under Frank Solich. In what year was that?
1990 what?
Doesn't say. I can't find it on here.
Yeah, 1998, 1997.
Joe, it is pettiness. I don't disagree with you. I mean, it is lame pettiness. It does kind of give ex-girlfriend vibes with the way that he's acting. I'm sure we'll get a shot from Nebraska side soon.
By the way, why is these either former Nebraska coaches or current Nebraska coaches always making headlines on taking shots about people?
I don't know. It is kind of random that they keep making headlines the way that they do. Great question.
Hey, Nebraska, look at your schedule. It sucks. Before you start taking shots. All right. By the way, we didn't even get to row your boat. PJ Fleck getting a contract extension, by the way.
Unimportant. Minnesota sucks.
PJ Fleck, 9 seasons at Minnesota, believe it or not, going into year 9. How about that? I mean, it's a blank, brother. I remember when he was there, when he was, 2015, 2016 in Western Michigan. Row your boat. By the way, half of the years at Minnesota, he's had 8 wins or more at Minnesota. All right, PJ Fleck.
It's commendable. That's the ceiling.
Yeah. That is their ceiling. Let's be honest. They're in Minnesota for crying out loud.
Mm.
All right.
Right.
See you on Sunday. Y'all have a good one. Peace.